Hi, Lois.
I'm sorry.
This is all Rajani's fault. She put in a request. She did?
Well, how about that?
I wasn't too sure.
Rajani wasn't. That's great.
I brought my grocery. Well, what do we talk about?
Well, anything that you want to talk about, but you know, something was just said there that reminded me earlier, we were talking, a lady came up and we were talking together, and she said she called and the phone was disconnected, and she said it was a wonderful feeling because she knew that you were right there, and she had the feeling, even though she couldn't get through, she could get through. And I was saying that what we have here is more secure and more permanent than any telephone.
That's right. We're not going to give you the number. And possibly in that way force you to use your head. Because everything you are is in your head. Everything you will be is now in your head. And you'll collect a few other things to stick in there now and then. Depends on the way you go. So you have 5 senses. You could enjoy your life completely if you just paid attention to that wonder of all wonders. Just imagine. You open your eyes and you see. You can hear. You can taste, smell, and feel. Just imagine. You're not helpless. You've had these 5 senses all the time, but you use them for other things. To taste something that didn't taste good. To smell something that would be something that you could get along without. And you open your eyes and you see, but you see what you want to see. Actually, you see in here. When your eyes are closed, you can see more than when they're open. But it's a good idea to open them. Every morning I open them.
Thank you.
Got another day. Yeah, what do I do with it? The day's all right. Everything is going to happen as per usual, according to the law set by our Maker. It's what I do with it. It's what you do with it. It isn't the weather, unless you allow the weather to control you. But it doesn't look to me like stay at home on account of that. that's because we covered the ground to make a road so that we could kind of have a smooth go at it in our automobiles. But it's not the water's fault. When the earth was made, before man got here, he had to cover up a lot of the ground. Then he had to build a sewage system. And I just noticed, and Dennis called it to my attention, that they've got some paint around some of the sewers, the sewer hole, and looks like they're going to do something about it. But they can't do everything. Can't get everywhere. When someone calls and says, "Take care of everything for me," some of them don't even know what's sitting in front of them. So if you could just entertain yourself with your see, your hear, and your taste, and your smell, and your feelings. You would just have a circus. He didn't short any of us. We shorted him. Used him when we hated something. We used them the opposite way. And we heard everything bad. We saw everything bad. And on down the line. And we had to have somebody come along and remind us that, gee, we really had something that we could use for good. You're good, but your good isn't anybody else's good. Everybody's different. They have different goods for themselves and different bads. And yet we find some people still judging others. That's because they're not safe themselves. When the church got after me a little bit, I knew that they were the ones that were insecure. When they were afraid of just little me. Harry Truman told he said a very good way to demonstrate the difference in people. There was a woman by the name of Astor. She became a self-made lady. And as she describes it, she learned the English language so well that even the Englishmen couldn't understand her, nor stand her. So she developed a certain authority within herself. So she asked Harry Truman why he had a Missouri accent. He says, because it's natural. I was born here. So Churchill was at a party where Lady Astor was present, and she sat right side of Churchill. Churchill liked to do this very often during a party. So she leaned over to him and she says, "Mr. Churchill, you are drunk." He says, "Yes, I'm drunk, but you're ugly. And I'll be sober in the morning." So there is differences in opinions and the way that things are, and we should give everybody the same privileges that we expect to have in this world. Our children should be given, if you tell lies, you should be able to be big enough to let the child lie. And if you tell the truth, you should be big enough to recognize it when the child says the truth. Everybody else ought to enjoy the same privilege or the same things that you are allowed to. So if you give a poor example to a child, expect them to react poorly. Because after all, if you're the parent, you're the number one. They kind of pattern themselves after you to a certain degree. Their own individuality will come out automatically as they go along, and they'll probably fight you about it. So one mother waited until the father came home to inform him that their son had told a lie. And she wanted him to give that boy the spanking of his life so that it would teach him never to lie again. So the husband had to do it. He takes the boy down the hall. Meanwhile, the phone rang. And his wife says, "It's for you, honey." He said, "Well, tell him I'm not here." That'll give you a little something to think about. He was going to beat his son for telling a lie, and he told one biggie right in front of him. So somehow we've got to keep criticism out of our ways of lives, because what he done according to his own way. Criticizing, well, you might find yourself doing the same thing some other way. So we all have the right to live here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Fair enough?
You're the only person that simply right this moment occurs to me that I never saw or heard tell a lie.
That's right.
You never say you're not there if somebody
I
calls.
tell the truth. That's the reason why nobody believes me.
Yes, that's true.
Oh, sure.
It's a little like you say, if you want to hide something, you put it right out in front. That's the same idea.
Or in a book.
Or in a book. But that's wonderful. I wish I could say that. I've lied before. Not for a long time. Not often. Maybe I never did. No, the importance of that
every living thing, regardless what it is, has to eat and remove. That's the way it was made. And still, we don't have to remind ourselves all the time that that's the kind of an animal we are. We're the only animal, though, that has a choice. The other ones are all guided by nature, which is fine. They get along fine. But we have a choice. It's a little different. I know many people, not here, of course, but I know many that use the intelligence they do have to remain absolutely and positively stupid. And they must find some enjoyment in that. It's a shame, would you say? To use your intelligence to be uneducated. Now, naturally, education means that it's continuous, because there's no one ever going to know it all. And that was another thing that Harry Truman said. It's the thing, the stuff that you learn after you thought you knew it all. He was a pretty nice guy.
Yes, he was.
And he was honest.
You know, that's it.
Yes. Already talked too long.
No. Did you say that?
He wouldn't even let the government pay for his postage. He carried his own stamps and envelopes. He would stamp and lick his own envelopes and put them in the mail like everybody else.
Yeah, how do you sell the billfold and
Yeah.
took out his stamps? The president, I didn't know this too long ago, but the president has Franken, I believe it's called Franken privileges, where he doesn't pay for any postage at all. And here was this old Harry Truman, he would take out his little thing here, little billfold, and he'd open up, get himself a little stamp and stamp his letters. Isn't that something when you think about it? Where most people take every little thing that they can get. That's neat. I have an appreciation for him that I didn't before. I have appreciation for dignity and honor and truthfulness and honesty that I never would have had without Carlo. And so do you.
Now, I mentioned that we're the only animals that have a choice. But what do you choose? How do you know what to choose? No human being knows this. They possess the ability for foreseeing, but they can't use it because they don't believe in it. Their hindsight isn't too good either. Foresight, well, a little. So, for a human being to choose a better way, there isn't any possibility for you to do that on your own because you know practically nothing in comparison to the amount of wisdom that is available. Now, I understood?
Yes.
Okay, now here's an easy way. I want you to remember this. Whenever you get up in the morning and you spill a little something, don't feel quite with it. Maybe you feel a little hateful. You had a dream that you didn't like. You stub your toe a little bit. You get in the car and it doesn't start right away. when it just isn't quite right. Stop and make no decision whatsoever. Just stop, and you can't help but think of me, and I have it set for you. But you don't have to think of me. It'll work anyway. Just don't decide how you want it to be. Stay out of that entirely. Just recognize that you're having it a little rough or unsmooth, whatever you term it to be, or however you would explain it. Don't bother about it. Just recognize it, and it'll change for the best for you personally at the time. Now just remember, don't make an effort to decide. See, that's what I want to relieve you on, because you don't know what to decide anyway. Not one of you knows what would be better for yourself. Some of them don't even know yourself, let alone know somebody else. So now this works only for you. If you do, so take it up. I was just kidding. But you let me say something there that you hadn't ought to have. There's no such thing as kidding. So you haven't been paying attention to some of my lessons as much as you ought to have.
You really think anybody's going to jump up out there and say, knock that off? Can't you just see that? Somebody stand up straight. Knock that off. I'm just kidding. But that's good. He reminded you, he showed you that he did something, and that's what he intended to do. Isn't that wonderful that he reminds us?
Right.
That's great.
So now remember, just become aware of the condition. Don't try to describe it. You won't be able to. Just your feeling, your five senses, and you know that things aren't the way you like them. And don't go over that. Just become aware of it, and then forget it. Make no decision. You understand?
Yes.
And it'll come out for you, not for the next person. See, it'll come out for you personally, and it'll be the good that will make it good for you personally, not your next door neighbor, even if they're a member. They've got to do that on their own so that they get it for themselves. You understand that? It will not work for your children. Do you follow?
Yes.
Okay. Now then, besides that, you don't see me very often, but you don't need to. And I'm loving you without you realizing it, because love does not take a demonstration. Most of the time you demonstrate it by putting your arms around someone, possibly kissing, and that does not make it love. Love is without intent in any way. It is a free thing. So now I can hold your hand wherever you go, wherever you are, and help you by doing that from my love. I don't have to physically be there to touch your hand, but you can feel my touch by your own consciousness. So I'll take you anywhere you want to go and help you get there safely. get there safely. Now, you may have a reason for not wanting to get there because it was something you thought you had to do. And no human being likes to do anything that he thinks he had to do. So that's what happened to our phone at the office. Some of the folks thought that it had to be done. And no one likes to be tied down, because as soon as they realize that they're tied down with a bunch of rules and things of that sort, they try to set themselves free. Now, free to them isn't really free, but if they ever got free, they would quickly find some way to get all bound up again. But I want to set you free on your own, not entirely. You don't have to call the office, and you won't be able to because we're not going to give you the number. You don't have to call. Just think of me, and that's all you'll need if you'll use your 5 senses to entertain yourself. And you'll be fine. Now, don't go right out and try to get yourself bound up. That's the way people, regular human beings, usually do. And they get all bound up with something else that isn't going to help them at all. Okay? Or it'll help them go back to their old way of life. Ups and downs, sick half the time. See, years ago, the doctors were supposed to help you when you were sick, not to help make you sick. And if you think of what I just said a little bit, you'll find out that's what they're